I think you guys know exactly how this video can age. More than likely milk, to be honest, but I don't know, I have a really fun time talking about theories for this game, and this is going to be a combination of all of the theories I have come up with, and maybe some people or even other content creators came up with these theories themselves, and honestly, I hate to say this and this may sound a little crazy, I just really don't watch any Resident Evil content. I just stay in my own bubble, if that makes sense. But regardless, I'm super hyped about this game and I want to talk about it more, so it's time for the theories and predictions for Resident Evil 9 Requiem. So before we get into it, be sure to leave a like on this video to help it reach the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the near future. And now let's get into it. So the first thing I have to talk about that I never had the chance to explain myself in a decent portion of the video as to why I think the FBI may be a villainous organization or just shady in general. It's funny that I believe this info came out only a couple weeks ago, knowing that Grace is sent alone to investigate murders at a hotel. Also, I don't want to skip forward on any type of theory, so here's my whole take on this. We saw Grace type a report or article involving an abandoned government office where bodies have been discovered. Maybe there's some sort of connection to that and the Renwood Hotel. Sending a technical analyst of all things to a spot where murders have been happening for nearly a decade is strange in itself. So in totality, this is the theory to support the FBI being shady. They send her over to the hotel as we probably are assuming she went there first. She ends up getting attacked by either the serial killer or somebody else, which explains the chest wound she has when she's on the gurney. Next, to fall back to the article she was typing involving an unidentifiable disease. What if the FBI sent her there to die because she was getting very close to uncovering the truth about this disease? Also, let's look at this screenshot. It seems this could either be a flashback or let alone Grace being unconscious being sent to the Road Hills Care Center. And the dude on the left kind of looks a little similar. Bald and glasses. It's interesting to think about, to say the least. And maybe they found out that Grace is either immune to this disease or there is something special about her, which is why the blood transfusion is happening in the first place. Why examine her blood? Probably because there's something more to her that we know about, but it's not confirmed. Which I also believe this blood transfusion is information coming back to the guy in the chair, which is why he is deeming her as the chosen one. There's something in her blood which probably connects back to Alyssa. Some people are thinking she's dead for good, maybe she's still out there, but 8 years being gone is hard to believe she's still alive. Which there can be a way she is still around, just not the way we want it to be, but that will be mentioned later on. However, it seems that there may be something that happened in RE Outbreak that could carry over into this game. Happy to know that canon is further established. In the final scenario of Resident Evil Outbreak File 1, known as Decisions, many scientists or researchers created a vaccine for the T-virus called Daylight. This was a vaccination that actually was used successfully for around a decade, even after Umbrella was shut down. My theory is that Alyssa was injected with the Daylight vaccine, presuming she was infected with the T-virus and all that. Now the antibodies are living in Grace's blood, presuming she had Grace after Raccoon City, because this is actually a common occurrence or theme in Resident Evil with offsprings. Jake with the C-virus, Sherry with the G-virus, and Rose with the Mutamycete. Now there's a very solid chance to add Grace with the T-virus with the Daylight vaccine in her blood. So yes, this may presume for Alyssa's role to be bigger than what is shown right now, but that's the best I can come up with involving why all this weird stuff is happening. Now let's get into the serial killer with the saliva running down his mouth. Many have had wild theories about who this exact person is. Some are saying Leon Kennedy, some are saying Jake Mueller, and even wilder theories. However, I don't think it's either, because I don't think Leon or Jake would be in crazy situations to end up as a BOW serial killer, and I just can't see that happening. However, I do believe this does involve a BOW that we are aware of, but have little to no information of, and in this game, I do believe we will finally get something. I don't think it is the exact BOWs that were in BSA uniforms, however. I think this virus, whatever it is, was either bought or moved into the areas of Raccoon City, and now somebody else was infected with this exact new virus. Because as we all know, we haven't seen a BOW with such coordination before doing human-like tendencies. The closest thing was actually the C-virus with the Joavo enemies, but I'm sure nobody wants that back. It kind of gives us an answer to the cliffhanger, but even so it brings more questions. Why was the BSA even using that? Did they sell the virus to the person in the chair? Was this the creator and took over the BSA for a short period of time? It brings so much into the conversation, but again, killing somebody with a plastic bag is just uncharacteristic for a basic BOW. So there's way more involving this person, and maybe there's more than one of these kind of threats like this one. And another thing too is, was it even the BSA at all, but Chris was able to know it was the BSA aircraft in RE Village? Regardless, I might be going off the rails, and it may just be a cliffhanger we will never get an answer to. I'm going to talk about this in its entirety, and it's something that has been driving a lot more discussion than expected because of the uncertainty involving the voices in the trailer. Many people are hoping it's characters that we are familiar with and whatnot, so let's get into them, and I will be explaining theories or just predictions right now.
Stay close. They're coming.
The first female voice is a very intriguing one because some people have speculated Grace, Jill, or even Alyssa. The voice actor is completely unknown and some have speculated it to be Maggie Robertson. Ultimately, I think she would come back, especially as to how amazing she was in RE Village. But one thing I think we can all agree on is maybe all of these voices are talking to Grace in the very beginning of the game. And the reason why some people may have that thought about Alyssa is in a potential flashback playthrough as her. And I can see that definitely, but as of right now, there's no indication despite us wanting that, for the sake of a potential prologue before stepping into this game. As of right now, I don't know who the first female voice would be. Now, let's talk about this one.
Investigating all these strange deaths, huh?
This one has been speculated to be Leon or even Kevin Ryman. However, I feel like I can see through the smoke and mystery with this one, and I hate to say it because I think this is a random NPC character or someone that has a very minor role, because it seems this guy is talking to Grace before she enters the hotel. I don't think this guy is going to have this major support role, and if he does, he might just play a small role that's going to be short-lived in my opinion.
Voices down.
Have you seen the same shit I've seen?
The next male voice gives off heavy indication that it's the voice actor who played Carlos and Chris in the RE Engine Resident Evil games, being Jeff Shine, which has made us either think that it's Carlos or Chris. Carlos, on one hand, I don't think it's him at all. I think he would want to be extremely far away from the vicinity of Raccoon City, and from how he was in 3 Remake and even Original 3, he wants to live a quiet and peaceful life. Plus, there would have to be a lot of explanations as to why he has been gone for essentially 30 years and just comes back now. Chris, on the other hand, to me feels more plausible because he has been involved in almost everything. However, I do think he has other priorities in his life at this time that would kill his chances of being in this game. That being a quote-unquote stepfather to Rose, as he's basically enrolling her into school, and even with the Village DLC, it indicates to us that Chris was pretty much doing that. Plus, if he was to show it back to Raccoon City, it would most likely be with the Hound Wolf squad. Or maybe he would say, I'm going to take care of this myself, but the way he has been since RE6, he's always been the captain of Alpha of a squad, and I don't think it's Chris at all. Maybe this is a completely different voice actor and maybe a new character that might get killed off because he could say he's seen some shit and then die shortly after.
Please know that you are my hope.
Then there are 2 new female voices that to me feel so strange. One sounds like a beyond terrified woman who is very old, and one being a little girl. I can't really give off any sort of theory involving as to who those 2 are. Maybe small support roles or even major ones, I can't tell. Now, we gotta talk about the guy in the chair. As you guys know, I made 2 candidates possible that I think are the strongest for who this could be. And I think both of them fit the bill extremely well, but I'm gonna talk about the one who a lot of people want to see first. From the accent, the hairline, and the gramophone, and the looks from what we have seen indicate this is Oswell E. Spencer. But I'm pretty sure we all know that Spencer is dead, right? So how could he come back from the dead? That just doesn't make any sort of sense, really. Unless you end up going all the way back before Umbrella began. And yes, it involves Resident Evil Village and the Spencer file Chris found. Spencer was aware of the Megamycete and went off on his own journey to found Umbrella. The mold's most noteworthy trait is its ability to absorb the genetics of its victims, as well as their consciousness and store it within itself. This has allowed the mold to imprint knowledge of the consciousness stored within the fungal root onto a host it has symbiotically bonded with. Both Mother Miranda and Ethan Winters were in direct contact with the conscious minds archived in their respective roots. So we know the mold is what kept Ethan alive for so long, and the consciousness was stored. We saw Spencer die at the hands of Wesker. The biggest question to me is this: was Spencer's body recovered by the BSAA? Did he come back from the sudden dead because of him having the mold in his blood or body? And is he responsible for the BSAA using bioweapons, which could lead into RE9? We have no idea. But it's hard to entirely get behind it because I recently played the RE Village DLC, and one of the things about the consciousness of the Megamycete is you have to die in its proximity for your memories and much more to be inside of it. So Spencer would had to have died a really long time ago before he even founded Umbrella. Not to mention, I don't think another Megamycete would be inside the Spencer estate, as I'm sure the BSA would have found that somewhere, since I'm assuming they investigated all of it. Or Spencer is just like Ethan in RE7, where he dies and the mold revives him. A lot of things I think would have to be retconned, so the person I do believe who is the one in the chair is Brandon Bailey. For those that are completely uneducated on who Brandon Bailey is, he is the founder of the Connections crime syndicate that has been working in the shadows over the events of RE7 and RE8. And for those who have read the files in Resident Evil 5, you know that Bailey was in Africa working on the progenitor virus and was the protege to James Marcus. And later on, he contacted friends after his assassination to go into Munich and founded the connections, that being Marcus's assassination. But in the end of RE5, it is stated that Bailey was assassinated as well. So we wiped him off the earth in terms of being a potential villain, until RE7 happened. The BSAA did their own investigation on Bailey because the connections started making noise, especially with Evelyn. Turns out they don't know if he really is dead or alive. The director of that game was Koshi Nakanishi. Now he is back with RE9 Requiem. So in my opinion, I think it would be absolutely terrible to just bring that name back and not use it at all. I just think it would be a fumbled opportunity, but then again, here's a weird part about him. They're not showing his face, which is, why? Is it someone we know? Which leads to the Spencer theory. Unless they reveal his face in the second trailer and those thoughts are completely gone to waste, maybe Capcom gave us a small teaser to him and they can reveal him. It's all up in the air at this point. There is a decent possibility that it is someone new, and it's funny because Bailey is new in a way and also not, if that makes sense. He just has always been in the shadows, and maybe, just maybe, they're finally bringing him into the light, and that's what I honestly hope. The next thing I want to talk about is the big monster that presumably will be pursuing us in the Road Hills Care Center, which is what I am assuming that is where the game begins. There have been many theories about who this possibly could be. Some are suggesting primarily two people, and I'm going to be explaining and supporting both theories. And I'll say who I think it will be in the end. The first person I will mention is Alyssa Ashcroft. We all know about the mystery of her being dead, and some of us have speculated that she is kinda dead, to the point where she is alive but not as Alyssa anymore, and that's where this hag-like monster shows up. Whoever is behind what's going on in the hotel could have experimented on Alyssa's body for 8 years, then creating this monstrosity that is pursuing Grace throughout the care center. And it can show how sick and demented the guy in the chair is, and dare I even say the potential villain in the shadows that has not been revealed yet. Because I recently went back to the reveal trailer for Resident Evil Village to see if there was something that stood out. Mother Miranda was not revealed. But sure, once we look back and complete the game, she was in the trailer as Mia, but there was no indication. We just saw Lady D and Heisenberg, and that was it. Also, a vast majority of that trailer was again the beginning of the game, with lots of the characters being Elena, her father, and the old man with the shotgun being showcased in the trailer, all to find out that they die shortly after when we play the game. Then I went to the second trailer, and that was when Mother Miranda's name was revealed, but not her face or anything like that. The second trailer didn't really show anything, and it was like that as well in the third. Name was said, nothing extraordinary was revealed until the fourth trailer hit, and then that was when a vast majority of the things were shown. However, this game is coming out in February compared to Village when it was in May. That's about 3 months, I believe, so maybe the marketing and trailers could be a lot different. However, when I'm talking about just the first trailers by itself for both games, I think they have a lot of similarities in terms of not revealing anything crazy, aside from going back to Raccoon City. Now, let's get back to Alyssa. Maybe they found something in her blood to the point where they can make her this horrifying BOW. Grace kills her mother as it's a trauma-like experience for us and herself, and this gives her the sense of motivation and justice for her mother to take down whoever made her into that, which would be great nonetheless. It gives us another reason to play as her. My personal choice as to who I think this is someone we are honestly familiar with. The thing is, we haven't seen her in so long, but from what the Capcom creators have said when they saw the demo gameplay, it's giving off a lot of strong indications that this is Lisa Trevor. Now you're probably thinking, how could Lisa have grown into something nearly 10 feet tall? How did she survive the explosion in the Spencer mansion and let alone the missile strike? This is my theory. After getting pinned down by the chandelier, which I'm assuming is canon, took a major hit due to the explosion, but somehow survived. How she came back to the mansion after falling down into the chasm where her mother was is because she used the underground tunnels to make her way back up. Also, there was no light and she still somehow found a way out. She goes back into the tunnels to be with her mother until the missile strike happened. Also, the lore behind Lisa's faces is because they all thought they stole her mother's face. So now that she found her mother, she has no reason to wear the faces anymore. And you don't see that on the hag, and underneath the mask you saw a very big grill of teeth on her. Very similar, right? She wanders off into the care center, or was caught by people with Umbrella after the strike, and was experimented on even further in this care center, which again is not far off from Raccoon City. Hag also means an ugly old woman. Lisa in the mid-2020s would be in her early to mid-70s, which would completely fit the description. We can also talk about the chained wrists and whatnot, and also it makes me feel more confident that she can just walk along with crawl around the hospital. And she has a very high sense of intelligence, which we saw that in RE1 Remake, and it would only have gotten stronger since then. If it is someone new, let's hope it has a haunting backstory very similar to Lisa, but she is my choice as to who I think this big monster is. The next thing we need to talk about is the cop turning into almost likely a zombie. Many of us are wondering what kind of virus we are going to be facing from the base enemy's perspective. Some of us have been speculating the T-virus returning or even the mold coming back once again. I really want the T-virus to come back, and maybe it mutated or evolved since the events of Raccoon City, but even then we've seen it come back in CGI movies like Death Island. I wouldn't be against it whatsoever, and it would be nice since we will be playing as Grace. And it's a great base enemy because of how green she is in combat. Yes, she does have capabilities, but in terms of the legacy characters and comparing them to each other, they can just kick the head off and that's it. There's no tension or fear factor. I feel like I'm in the middle when it comes to the mold, that being I'm not going to be surprised if we are facing it again or some variation of it, or if we are done with it, I'm fine either way. A part of me believes that the Mega Mycete is done because of the events of Village. There's only one way in my opinion that could have the mold tied to this game, and it actually involves the guy in the chair, which again I believe it's Brandon Bailey. I still believe the connections are going to have a role in this game, and I know I sound all over the place right now because again I don't know what to expect when it comes to this virus. I legit have no idea. Basically what I'm trying to say is that I hope there is a way that Capcom can connect the past events of Raccoon City and somehow tie in the events of what happened in Village and somehow in 7, if the Connections Crime Syndicate is even in this game at all. There have been some interesting questions involving this woman walking through the care center. From the back, some of us have thought this looks like Hunnigan in a way, but even with my delusion wanting to be true, I actually think this voice is this woman.
They're coming.
It would be very weird for Hunnigan to be in a role where the horror is directly in her face after all of these years helping Leon from afar. Now, I'm not ruling Hunnigan out of this game entirely because of other theories I have for this video, but I don't think this is her. I think it's the same tactic RE Village used, that being a character we may think have a big role, but in reality is probably going to get killed off within like the 5 minutes of screen time they get. I can't fall for that again. Now it's time to get into the part where the theories are more so out there because there's little to no ground to work on, if that makes sense, to support these theories, but I firmly believe in these until they change in an eventual trailer drop that debunks a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So the first thing we need to talk about is the one piece of information we got involving the plot details of this game, and in case anybody missed out or is unaware of the situation, this is it right here. Everything is set in motion when a body, the victim of an unidentifiable disease, is discovered in an abandoned hotel. FBI analyst Grace Ashcroft is assigned to the case, but the crime scene is at the very same hotel where her mother died 8 years ago. Grace prepares to finally face the past and makes her way to the scene, but this one case leads to uncovering the hidden truth behind the outbreak in Raccoon City, the biological disaster that shook the world. Will this be the Requiem that finally lays the memories of that abhorrent disaster to rest? So many people have been wondering what exactly is the hidden truth, or more so, don't we know about everything? The virus leaking, the city being nuked? There's a lot more to what is going on, because there has been a lot of suspicion involving Umbrella, and in my opinion, the true enemy of Resident Evil, let alone this game in my opinion, that being the US government. They've always been the villain that has been hiding in plain sight in my opinion. But maybe this is the game everything changes for the better, and closes a chapter that should have been shut a long time ago. This is how they covered up the incident, deemed it to be a toxic wasteland, but in reality, it never was. The basis of the missile strike is an experimental thermobaric missile, which relies on the explosion of a fuel-air mixture generating immense pressure and heat without any nuclear radiation, and its destructive power approaches that of small nuclear bombs but without the radioactive effects. The first half of this dark truth is naturally Umbrella. We all know how the company's deadly T-virus caused the Raccoon City incident, but a lesser known fact is that Umbrella wasn't done with Raccoon even after the city got bombed. This was seen in Resident Evil Outbreak's ending. In this ending, it's revealed that Umbrella built a research station right there in the crater of Raccoon City. The scientists say it's been 6 months and there's no way the barren wasteland of Raccoon could sustain life, but the other scientist says, not humans at least. With some of their documents being dated in the year 2000, it seems Umbrella experimented in this crater for years, possibly right up to the company's shutdown in 2003. But Umbrella having access to Raccoon City bears an even worse question. How did they get the access/funding? The interesting thing about that crater lab is that it was never owned by Umbrella. It was owned by the US government, which did end up giving them full jurisdiction, however, to operate in that lab until Umbrella was bankrupt. So they didn't have to shut the lab down or destroy it since it was government owned, so they could definitely have went back over there after the bankruptcy to work on the BOWs or whatever viruses they were working on. At the beginning of this cutscene, a military jet flies over Raccoon City to take pictures of the exploded city, likely as a damage assessment, but then it's shown that Umbrella is looking at the very picture the jet took. That means the government is giving Umbrella intel. While Umbrella's shadow loomed over Raccoon, the United States government was the true evil behind the incident, funding Umbrella's viral research. They were directly responsible. In fact, that's the whole reason they bombed the city. Enter the cover-up. While they were fearful of the T-virus spreading, the government's true fear was of their coalition with Umbrella being leaked. Thus, they destroyed the city with every monster and every witness. They lied to the media, telling the public Raccoon City was potentially radioactive now. With Raccoon City fenced off and deemed a toxic wasteland, no one would now snoop around the crime scene. Then possible higher-ups worked with Umbrella to build a new research station and advance the T-virus in this fruitful land. That is until 2013. The hidden truth of Raccoon City died with Umbrella in 2003, but that was all threatened when President Adam Benford was going to risk it all, exposing the US's part in the Raccoon City incident. Unfortunately, he was assassinated before revealing the truth. Which also leads me to add this part about the villain. If this is all going to be true throughout RE9, it feels like this guy has had deep ties to Umbrella and the government. How does he know that Raccoon City was never nuked? We may not know that answer until he is revealed. That's why I still believe it is Bailey, possibly. Another person I just wanted to throw in here for shits and giggles, even though I don't think this will be true at all. What if this was the President of the United States in 1998, and is now hiding in this wasteland of Raccoon City? But aside from all of that, if again this all comes to fruition, I think there is only one character that I have a super strong belief in showing up to support Grace, and maybe there is another one in the shadows too. The problem with this theory is that, will it take away a lot of the spotlight from Grace? We don't know. And also, I do hope she has her moments in this game as well, and she deserves that as she has a purpose in this game. And it's very heavy for us classic RE fans knowing Alyssa is dead. For now. That character I am talking about is Leon Kennedy. I have been wondering what is left in his story aside from Ada, and ultimately I couldn't come up with anything at all. Until I saw the hidden truth, and how the US government can be perfectly set up as the true villain in this game. There is a way to connect everything to this game, but for Leon's sake, let's talk about his possible connection. Since the Raccoon City incident, we know he was blackmailed into the US government, and has been in their pockets since then. He only really did it to protect Sherry, and made sure she wasn't harmed in any way. It showed the government's shadiness, and willingness to do what's necessary to keep their secrets covered. If you go back to Infinite Darkness and at the ending, Claire asks for a chip to expose the government that Leon had. As much as he wanted to do that, he couldn't do it. Because if he did, he knows the government would hunt him down until he was dead, or even do other things that would haunt Leon for the rest of his life. In 2012 or 13, Adam Benford, the guy who ended up blackmailing Leon into the government, was ready to reveal everything that happened in the Raccoon City incident, until he was assassinated shortly after telling Leon. Again, showing how far the government would go to protect their secrets. If they would kill the president, what do you think they would do to Leon? This is the perfect opportunity to not only avenge Adam for what happened to him, but for the people he wanted to protect and serve in Raccoon City. Granted, Leon was only there for a day, and that trauma has carried with him to this day. Finally, he has the potential opportunity to exorcise his demons, and finally be at peace from a nightmare that has haunted him for around 30 years. I want to also mention other characters like Jill and much more, but I think that can be for another video. However, there is one more character I think may show up. It's more so further connected from the plot of RE9, but I think there is a way for her to be involved, and that's Ada Wong. It's been a very long time since we have seen her, since Resident Evil 6. No CGI movies, no mainline stuff, just the remakes, and that's it. And I also feel like in terms of theories that have been going around for the longest time in Resident Evil, a lot of us don't really talk about who called Ada after her story was done in RE6. It's still up in the air and she was considered to be in RE8. So the plans were there, they just figured out she didn't fit Ethan's story. If Leon is going back to Raccoon City, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Ada is there with him. But let's keep it real, her life changed as well. We saw what happened with her quote-unquote boyfriend John in RE1. When she met Leon, she changed, and their fates have been intertwined since then. And we have been wondering, will Capcom finally end this will they won't they dynamic for these two? This can be the perfect game to do so, and even if there is DLC content, which I'm assuming there will be, I think it's a good game for her to be in the shadows, and we can finally uncover the secret of who called her and why. It's quite interesting that it happened right after Simmons died. I hope one day that can get answered. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, Koshi Nakanishi and the RE9 team wanted Leon to be the protagonist of this game, and he was saying those things with a very visible smirk on his face. It's a great marketing tactic, and it's pulling us in for us to believe he's in this game without confirmation. And even some descriptions describe RE9 as this game that has bone-chilling horror and pulse-pounding action. That's where I think Leon comes into play. Now for these two final theories, one is just off the rails and I expect none of you guys to believe me, and the last one may make you think of the remakes differently in a way. In RE7 we know that Evelyn was supposed to be transported to a place in Central America. We didn't know exactly where, and maybe Mia and Alan didn't know where either. The BSAA failed to capture them, the shipwrecks in Louisiana, and it makes me think of this. If the guy in the chair is Brandon Bailey, was Evelyn supposed to go to Raccoon City, where she can have this freedom in one city and a family there and they're all by themselves? Because that's what she wanted in the end. And it seems like only a handful of people know about Raccoon City being a place you can go to again. Maybe Mia wasn't aware, and she was only there for her getting to America and that was it. I don't know, I think that theory is just a little too delusional for me, but I guess it just made me think deeper than what I should have thought. I don't know, I thought it was fun to think about. Now for my final theory, we know the main purpose of remaking the Resident Evil games. Money and much more. But I thought to myself, since RE9's RPD looks exactly like RE2 Remake's RPD, what if they remade the games for us to experience the nightmare all over again in a new engine and more? 2 and 3, even if we say the originals are better, still sold high and some people hold those games in high regard, because let's keep it real. Those 2 games introduced a ton of new fans into the series and that's not a bad thing. They're fans just like us now. And you're asking, why did they remake 4 then? What if it was for people to be recapped of Leon's story, adding in new pieces and giving us the new experience, all for it to end in RE9 where it all began? I'm not saying Leon is going to die even though I made a video about it. I'm not saying I want him to. It's more so, I'm prepared if Capcom does it. Because even if he is the golden boy, the cash cow and much more, all stories come to an end. Capcom have been trying new things, introducing new characters, and both Village and 7 have sold extremely well. And I think 9 will do just as good as those 2 games and maybe even better. It's kind of telling us that they're not afraid to change things. Leon is entering or is in his 50s. If you dive into his mind, he's burnt out from it all, and eventually he's going to want out. He never wanted to be an agent, he just wanted to be in Raccoon City to protect and serve the citizens. This is his perfect chance to avenge them and conclude his story. Whether if he goes off the grid with Ada or dies is up in the air. I don't know. Grace may be a future piece in RE games, and as of right now, I'm excited for her and what she can bring to the table. Regardless, those are all of my theories as of right now. They can change anytime soon or even after the second trailer drops, and I may even have more once new info drops as well. But let me know your theories in the comments and let me know your thoughts on my theories as well. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like on it to help it reach the algorithm and subscribe to the channel for all that good stuff. And as always, I will catch you guys in my next video. Peace out and much love.